14 minutes now before the hour of 8 o'clock. So wherever you have to be at 8 o'clock and you're not parking in the car park, you are so late. It is not funny. This is back to school morning. So with us now we have Julia Hanchel, and we're preparing for the new year. It's going to look at some of the ground rules for parents as well. And Kathy talked about the old art of being children, you know, activities and stuff for the kids. But what about the lost art of being a parent? And for me, that is paramount now in today's society. You're not a parent if you and your child are friends. Your child has friends. You're not one of them. You need to be a parent. With us is Julia Hanchel. Good morning, Julia. I feel like I'm having a reunion. Kathy went to QC with me. Julia went to QC with me. We have no reunion, I'm telling you.
Yeah. QC girls rule the world.
QC girls unite.
And my dad couldn't go to QC, unfortunately. So.
No. And believe it or not, those days were pretty good days.
Very good days.
We drove through those gates in Constitution Road.
The Republic of QC.
Absolutely.
We want to start this morning, Julia, and you're the Administrative Director of Learning Solutions, by looking at things like ADHD and those kind of things. How do you tell the difference between a child who is just a little more active than you would like and a child who has ADHD?
You're looking mainly at consistency of behaviors. You know, boys, there's a saying that we all sort of resort to: boys will be boys. Boys do have ADHD, are diagnosed with ADHD about 4 times more than girls are. The ratio is pretty cruel. It's about 3 to 4 is boys, and one of those 4 kids will be a girl. But the symptoms are pretty much all the same. You have some children who present with impulsivity. There's just very, very little control over their behaviors. And it's, I mean, all children are impulsive, but the ADHD child really acts before they actually think. And a child who normally does that, almost as soon as it's done, they realize that they really shouldn't have done it.
But how are we
the ADHD child, it's something, it's a chemical imbalance, you know, it's a brain issue.
Because I'm trying to work out, how do you differentiate that child from a child who's just normally active? I was on Facebook a couple of days ago where a friend was lamenting that he's going to open negotiations with the orthopedic surgeon because his son, who he had told not to jump up and down on the couch, jumped up and down on the couch, fell off and broke his collarbone.
Oh,
I mean,
goodness.
That's the kind of thing that kids do. So how do you tell the difference between that and a child who is over the top?
A child that's over the top, those behaviors are going to be pretty consistent wherever the child is, whether the child's at school, whether the child's at home, whether the child's with a grandmother, whether the child is being fully occupied and stimulated, or whether the child is left to their own devices. And an ADHD child who is hyperactive and can't sit still, it's not going to be jumping on the couch, it's going to be sitting in a chair like this, or tapping something to the point where you think you're going to go crazy.
Is it a case though where we've always described those children as naughty or
ADHD children get a really, really bad rap. They're, you know, classically the naughty kids, the hard-airs kids, you know. What hard-airs don't hear, botsy will feel. They're the hard-airs kids. They have, for generations, received more licks, I think, than any other child. Because their behaviors are, it's a control issue. That's why a lot of ADHD kids actually go onto medication, and the misconception there is that the medication calms them down. What the medication actually does is it's a stimulant. So they're more stimulated to actually take in what is going on around them. And they're actually more in control through using this stimulant medication. You have to remember that children want to learn and they want to pick up information however they possibly can. So that's why when you have a little child, you know, 18 months old, the child goes and pokes their finger where they shouldn't poke it, but that's a learning experience for them. They're doing that because they want to see, they want the reaction. Now an ADHD child is continually doing that because he's trying to make sense of what is a very anxious world. You can't underestimate the level of anxiety that ADHD children actually have. And the adult response to them is classically incorrect.
But how do parents cope?
With great difficulty. You know, I saw a little boy who was definitely ADHD the other day. I can't remember where it was, the supermarket or the gas station or somewhere. Oh, I know where it was. It was at Price Smart. And he was hopping and jumping and busy and humming and talking and sorting and whatever. And he was with his dad. And I thought to myself, you know, if he was with his mum or his granny, he would have had 2 hard slaps. He would have been told to stay still.
Wait a minute.
You know, but the dad just handled it absolutely beautifully. He put him onto task and he said, okay, Sonny, if you want to be so active, unpack the trolley.
Yeah, do this.
And he showed him how to do it, and he helped him with the heavy stuff and so on. And he harnessed all that wonderful energy and creativity. And the 2 of them got through absolutely just fine. And when the goods were actually going through to the checkout lady, he sort of went to his dad and he gave him a huge big hug. And I thought, you know, that's how parents need to handle these kids. Love solves a lot of issues.
What about diet? Is diet important in this? Less sugar, that kind of thing?
Well, there is a correlation between food colorings and the amount of sugar and so on, and ADHD actually being exacerbated by it. A lot of parents do try to control ADHD with diet. Diet plays, and there is a role that medicine plays.
But is there something in particular that parents should be looking out for? So not a lot of sugary
drinks? Well, no child really should have a very high sugar diet. And as we know that juice, as lovely as it is, contains more sugar than fizzy drinks. Sugar is a big problem. Sugar is a big problem in adults. You and I know that, Joe. Yeah. You need to keep your your glycemic index kind of stable. Sugar is a big problem, but colors are also a big problem. You know, the food colors in the orange and the red food colors and so on. So whereas a high sugar drink that's blue or green may not be terribly good for you, with an ADHD kid, a high sugar drink that's orange or red is decidedly bad for you.
Okay.
Well, I mean, if you want those behaviors too.
What about things like using the computer and getting enough sleep and that kind of thing? Because I figure these kids may be less prone to sleep than most other kids. Well,
often ADHD children who are on medication, sleep becomes an issue and food becomes an issue. Some of the side effects are irregular sleep patterns, and the kids may not find it very easy to come down off that stimulus and actually go to sleep. So sleep is very much...
Can you build a routine in there?
Well, that's where routine does come in, because sleep doesn't happen when you're adrenaline driven. You know, you can't come off of a PSP game like this, which actually rises your adrenaline level, and then fall into a nice, you know, blissful sleep. So routine does play a big part. Sleep is important. ADHD children often don't get as much sleep but need more sleep than kids who don't have ADHD.
So then it's better to take the distractions away from their bedroom?
No computer, no video games?
I'm a firm believer that any child who is at school, I'm not talking about the sixth formers who pretty much can manage your time and so on by then. Any child who's at school, a computer in their bedroom is not a good idea. Don't let them fool you they don't have homework. Don't let them fool you they're going to do research on the computer. That's just a bunch of nonsense. You know, Barbados is Barbados. It's not the UK. You know, our kids haven't been using laptops in classrooms for the past 10 years. A computer in a home is best in a communal area where the child can use it and you are nearby, that you can hear and see what's going on. And all this big chat about children having to have music while they're actually working, take that with a grain of salt, a pinch of salt, because classical music, which has a beat, it has 60 beats per minute, is actually in perfect timing with your resting heart rate. Classical music is absolutely great, but we know that children aren't putting on classical music when they're actually studying. They're putting on something that's not instrumental and something where the words leave a lot to be desired, usually. A lot of people do work better with noise. And you know, it's always a case of you need to know your child best. But I still find it really hard to believe that you can be listening to, you know, heavy metal or rock or dub or whatever it is.
And doing your history homework.
And somehow get those history dates to stick in your head. I mean, that's a tall one.
I found it so remarkable that even my little one, for example, you wouldn't even think he's paying attention. But then one day driving in the car, he's singing, he knows all the lyrics to, you know, this song. Where did you learn that?
Well, there's something to be said for repetition. Which is, you know, you have to, something has to sort of pass through your mind, stop for a little while in your working memory, stop for a little while in your short-term memory, and be repeated 13 times before that's committed to long-term memory. Now, with an ADHD kid, there are certain things that they'll they'll get right away. If something is very challenging and they're very focused on actually mastering it, or if something is very stimulating or very entertaining, they will dive right in and get involved in it. But let's face it, when was the last time something like history was
stimulating and entertaining? I know.
Yeah. As much as I love it.
Yeah,
you know?
I know your pain.
You know, but sleep is definitely a big one, and food is a big one, because one of the side effects of medication can be a decreased appetite.
Okay.
And therefore, it's not that they won't eat at all, but they do eat more sporadically. So that's where it's important to make what they do eat count.
But I was going to ask you, what are the alternatives to medication?
You know, an ADHD child who needs medication, there's really not much of an alternative to it. And if you think about it, a pediatrician is not going to prescribe medication for a child if it's going to do them any harm.
But a dependence on medication over a period of time, though, doesn't that create a problem?
Well, often with ADHD medication, you're on it for a period of time, but you do take breaks. It works while you take it. It isn't a while wear a cast. You're at school, you have ADHD, your pediatrician has prescribed medication. School, take the meds. While you're on holidays, don't take the meds and drive your parents crazy. The one thing that we have seen some parents do is some parents have actually medicated their child when they can't cope.
Okay. Oh,
not a good idea. These meds need to be, they're controlled medications, and they do need to be.
Unfortunately, Julia, we're going to have to wrap this up. We're out of time, but we definitely should have you back, because there's so many areas we didn't cover.
Interesting discussion.
Routine and that kind of thing.
Yeah,
those
really
are definitely
important.
the things that we need
if there's
to get
one thing I'd
into.
like parents to remember, is that they're the dog, the child's the tail. Don't let the tail bite
the dog. Well said, well said. Thank you very much, Julia Hanshaw.